In the quiet town of Eldoret, Kenya, lived a young girl named Zawadi. Life had never been easy for her. Orphaned at a young age, she was raised by her aunt and worked long, tiring hours at a small tailoring shop just to pay her younger sister's school fees. She didn't have much, but she had big dreams and a heart full of hope. One day she met Latalo, a handsome, jobless man with smooth words and even bigger dreams. He talked about building a future, starting a business, changing his life. Zawadi believed him. His smile made her feel seen, and for the first time in a long while she felt like maybe, just maybe, love could carry her out of struggle. Slowly she began to pour her whole world into him. Her time, her energy, even the little money she had saved for herself. She cooked for him, encouraged him, helped him draft business ideas. She saw not just who he was but who he could become. Everyone warned her. Be careful. He's using you, they said. But Zawadi didn't listen. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. Because in her heart she thought, when he wins we both win. Zawadi loved deeply, with a heart full of hope. When Latalo told her about his dream of starting a motorbike business, she didn't hesitate. She took off her only gold earrings, a gift from her late mother, and sold them. That money helped Latalo register his first motorbike. He smiled, held her close, and told her she was his miracle. That moment made her believe they were building something real together. Every day, she worked longer hours at the tailoring shop, sewing until her fingers hurt. Sometimes, she came home with only enough money for one meal. And she always gave it to Latalo. Eat, you need strength to chase your dreams, she would say, even as her own stomach growled. Rent time came, and Latalo still had no steady income. So Zawadi paid it. Month after month. Quietly. Without complaining. She would go to church alone, pray for him, and smile at strangers. Even when her heart was tired. Her friends noticed. You're doing everything, they whispered. He's using you. But Zawadi refused to listen. She had seen Latalo cry. She had seen his fear, his dreams, his hunger for a better life. One day, she told herself, he will change our lives. All of this will be worth it. She dreamed of the day he would ride his motorbike into town, making money, lifting them out of struggle, building a home where laughter lived. She believed in his potential more than he did. That belief became her anchor. Even when she had nothing left to give, she found ways to give more. She patched up his torn clothes, stayed up late helping him with business ideas, and never asked for anything in return. Because to Zawadi, love was about sacrifice. Real love meant helping someone become the best version of themselves, even if it cost you everything. At first, everything felt like a dream coming true. Latalo's motorbike business started picking up. He was finally making some money. Zawadi was proud. She had believed in him when no one else did. But slowly, something began to change. Small things at first. He stopped saying thank you when she made him tea or packed his lunch. He no longer held her hand when they walked, and he avoided walking with her to church on Sundays like they used to. Their deep talks, the ones that once lasted all night, became short, cold replies. She tried to brush it off. Maybe he's just tired, she told herself. But the distance grew. One evening Latalo came home late. Zawadi opened the door and froze. He was wearing a shiny designer shirt, expensive shoes, and cologne she had never smelled before. One she didn't buy him. His face looked different, colder, like a stranger had walked in. She smiled softly and said, "You look nice. Where did you go?" He just shrugged and said, "Around," without looking at her. That night Zawadi couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, feeling something she had never felt before. Invisible. She started noticing other signs too. He was always on his phone, laughing at messages he didn't share. He left early, came back late, and barely looked her in the eyes. When she tried to talk about her day, he nodded without listening. The man who once told her she was his reason for trying now acted like she was in the way. Zawadi cooked his favorite meals, wore the dress he once loved, but nothing brought him back. She sat in silence, watching the man she had poured her life into drift further and further away. Her heart whispered what she didn't want to believe. This wasn't love anymore. This was change. And not the kind she had prayed for. Zawadi thought maybe things were finally getting better. After weeks of silence and coldness, Lutalo invited her to Kisumu for dinner. He said he had something important to talk about. She dressed carefully that evening, wearing a simple but beautiful Ankara dress she had sewn herself. She even borrowed a friend's lipstick. Her heart was nervous but full of hope. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe he was ready to start over. They arrived at a rooftop restaurant with soft music and candlelight, the kind of place she had only seen in magazines. For a moment she felt seen again. Special. But as they sat down she noticed he didn't smile. He didn't even look at her properly. Then came the words that shattered her. Lutalo stared across the table, his face blank, and said, "You're good but not enough. I need someone who can match my ambition." Zawadi blinked, thinking she didn't hear him right. But he went on calmly like he was talking about the weather. He told her he had met someone new. Her name was Namatsi, the daughter of a powerful real estate tycoon. Rich, educated, and full of connections. "She can help me get where I want to go," he added without shame. Zawadi sat frozen. Her heart was pounding but her body couldn't move. The man she had believed in, sacrificed for, loved without limits was leaving her just like that. She tried to speak but no words came. The food on the table turned cold. So did the air around her. Tears filled her eyes but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. She stood up slowly, her legs shaking. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me who you really are." And she walked away, heels clicking softly against the rooftop floor. Her back straight but her soul breaking with every step. That night, Zawadi didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost a dream she had built around someone who never truly saw her worth. Zawadi returned to her tiny one-room apartment in Eldoret with her heart in pieces. She locked the door, fell to the floor, and cried like she had never cried before. She didn't eat. She didn't answer calls. The pain of being left after everything she had given was too much to carry. For 3 days straight, she cried until her eyes were sore and her voice was gone. Every corner of the room reminded her of him. The chair he used to sit on, the tea mugs, the business notes they once wrote together. Her dreams felt dead. Her chest felt empty. But on the 4th morning something shifted. She woke up, wiped her face and looked around. The tears had washed away the illusion. All that was left was her. Just Zawadi. And for the first time that felt like enough. She walked to the corner of the room where her old sewing machine sat, covered in dust. Slowly she touched it, then plugged it in. The hum of the machine felt like music to her soul. That day, Zawadi made her first bridal dress. It was bold, colorful, and full of fire. Just like the woman she was becoming. She named her new brand Zawadi Threads. A name she had once imagined building with Lutalo. But now it was hers alone. No more waiting, no more begging for love. This time she would sew her own destiny stitch by stitch. Zawadi kept sewing, even when no one was watching. Every day, she sat by her sewing machine in her small room and created magic with her hands. She poured her heart into every stitch, using colorful Ankara fabric to tell stories of strength, beauty, and African pride. She didn't have fancy machines or a big shop. Just passion. One day, a bride who had ordered a custom gown from Zawadi posted a video on TikTok. She twirled in a bright hand-stitched dress made by Zawadi, smiling, laughing, glowing. She tagged the video, "Handmade in Eldoret by Zawadi Threads." Within hours it started gaining likes, then shares, then thousands of comments. By the next morning it had gone viral. People from Uganda, Ghana, South Africa, even the UK, were sending messages asking, "Can you make one for me?" Zawadi couldn't believe it. Her inbox was full. Her phone didn't stop ringing. Orders started coming in faster than she could sew. But instead of turning people away, she did something even more powerful. She opened her door. She hired women from her community, single mothers, widows, and girls who had given up on their dreams. She trained them, encouraged them, gave them a second chance, just like she had given herself. Zawadi Threads became more than just a fashion brand. It became a movement, a symbol of hope, strength, and rising after heartbreak. Every dress told a story, and every woman behind those stitches found new meaning in their work. They weren't just sewing dresses, they were sewing dignity back into their lives. Zawadi smiled each time a package left for a different country. Not because of the money, but because her pain had bloomed into purpose. What once broke her had built something beautiful. And now the whole world was watching. The The big lights of Nairobi lit up the hall as young entrepreneurs filled the room, buzzing with excitement. Kenya's Ministry of Youth Empowerment was hosting a startup pitch event, and the crowd waited eagerly to hear from the keynote speaker, a woman who had turned Heartbreak into a fashion empire. Backstage, Zawadi stood tall in a bold chitinge suit, her hair wrapped in a beautiful headscarf. Her smile was calm, but her heart was full. Just a few years ago, she had been sitting on the floor of her one-room home, crying in silence. Now she was here, not as someone's shadow but as a leader, a success, a voice of power. In the crowd, one of the startup finalists walked in nervously, holding his pitch notes. His shoes were dusty, his shirt slightly wrinkled. It was Lutalo. Life had not been kind to him since his big break. His motorbike business had failed. Namatsi had left him. He had no job, no plan. Only an old Boda Boda app idea he was trying to revive. When he heard the name Zawadi Threads announced on stage, he froze. He looked up, and there she was. The same Zawadi he had left behind, now glowing in success, standing tall, commanding the room. He blinked, almost in disbelief. The room went silent as she began to speak. Zawadi walked slowly toward the stage, the lights catching every detail of her regal chitinge suit. The fabric was bold, full of color and pride, just like her story. Her heels clicked with quiet confidence, her head held high. The audience clapped as she stepped up, but one man in the back was frozen. Lutalo sat still, staring at her, completely shocked. He didn't recognize her at first. This woman looked nothing like the girl he once left crying in a small room. She was glowing, powerful, transformed. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. It hit him all at once. This was Zawadi. The same Zawadi who had once skipped meals for him, who sold her gold earrings to help him start a business, who loved him when he had nothing. Now, she was standing in front of a crowd, loved and respected by many, while he sat silently in the audience, with nothing but his broken pitch idea. Zawadi looked over the crowd with calm eyes. She began to speak, sharing her story. Not with anger, not with pain, but with pride. She spoke about rising from rejection, turning heartbreak into power, and building something beautiful from the ashes. Her words flowed like poetry, touching hearts in the room. She didn't mention names, but every sentence hit Lutalo like thunder. His hands trembled. This was the woman he had once called not enough. And now, she was everything he wished he could be. As she ended her speech, the crowd stood and clapped. But before she walked off the stage, Zawadi smiled and said, "Sometimes fortune doesn't sparkle, it stitches." The room went quiet, then exploded with applause. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. And Lutalo just sat there, silent, powerless, watching the woman he once underestimated shine brighter than he ever imagined. After the business pitch event, Lutalo couldn't sleep. Zawadi's face, her voice, her success. It all stayed in his mind like a song he couldn't forget. The memory of how he once walked away from her now felt like a heavy chain around his neck. He opened his Instagram and stared at her page. Picture after picture showed her glowing, laughing, traveling, and dressing brides from all over the world. The comments were full of love. People called her a role model, a queen, a symbol of power. And here he was broke, lost, and alone. Even Namatsi had left him when his money dried up. The fancy dinners and designer clothes were gone, and so was she. She didn't wait to help him rise again. She vanished the moment he fell. In a moment of regret, Lutalo typed a message to Zawadi. Something like, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" He hoped maybe she would remember the good times. Maybe she still had space in her heart. But Zawadi didn't reply privately. Instead, she posted a screenshot of his message with a simple, powerful caption. "Thank you for leaving. You gave me space to discover what I truly carry inside." Within hours, the post went viral. People all over Kenya, and even from other countries, started sharing it. Some laughed, some cried, most clapped. The message wasn't just a clapback. It was a lesson. A reminder that sometimes, the people who leave you are doing you a favor. Because in that empty space they leave behind, you find your true self. Lutalo read the comments one by one. People called Zawadi a phoenix, a warrior, a woman who turned pain into power. And him? They called him the biggest mistake she ever made. His heart sank deeper. The final blow had landed. Not from anger, not from insults, but from her strength, her peace, and her glow. And that silence? That graceful goodbye? It hurt more than any words ever could. Zawadi now travels across Kenya, not just as a fashion designer, but as a mentor and big sister to many young girls. She visits schools, villages, and women's groups, carrying her sewing machine and her story. She teaches tailoring but also teaches something deeper: confidence, courage, and self-worth. Most of the girls she meets have been through tough times just like she once did. Some have lost parents, others have been left behind or told they are not enough. But when they see Zawadi, they see proof that pain doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning. One day, Zawadi is invited to BBC Africa for an interview. Sitting in front of the camera in a brightly patterned dress made by her team, she looks calm, strong, and full of grace. The interviewer asks her, "Zawadi, what made you unstoppable?" She takes a small breath, smiles gently, and says, "Being left was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I was never empty. I was the fortune." That one sentence touches millions. It goes viral again, reminding people across the world that the real treasure isn't found in others. It's found within. And Zawadi, once heartbroken and forgotten, had become the real definition of wealth.